Our namesake, War said, was born in 1833 and died in 1910. Masonically, he was a Grand Master for 10 years, from 1866 to 1873, and then again in 1876 and 1877. We're proud to announce that in 1873, his last year, in his first term of his 10 years, he brought about John F. Cook. We were born in 1873. And also, in the Grand Lodge, we were known as the Union Grand Lodge, which encompassed, I think, Virginia, part of Virginia, Delaware, and Pennsylvania. But somewhere along the line, he changed all of that and came up with Acacia Grand Lodge. And later on, it was changed to Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of D.C. Now, the person who changed that at that time was Simpson W. Wallace, who was the Grand Master. This was in 1945, 1946. Either you guys know who Simpson W. Wallace is?
I heard of him.
Simpson W. Wallace was a member of John F. Cook. So we had three Grand Masters in John F. Cook. I think Simpson W. Wallace,
Blakely.
Past Master Curtis J. Blakely, and I think another one named Carter. So we've had three so far. But Simpson W. Wallace, I think he was a master in Cook in 1921. And he's the one in 1949 who changed it to, 1945, 1946, changed it to Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge of the District of Columbia. And that's pretty much how we go with his Masonic thing. Now let's get to the man himself. His family, his father, John F. Cook Sr., was a slave. And his freedom was bought by an aunt, Alethea Tanner, I think her name was. And she bought his freedom and I think two other family members' freedom for $1,450. She was an industrious woman at the time, I guess, who knew how to go about making money. And she was able to buy their freedom. Senior John F. Cook also was an industrious man, and he went about doing things too to make money. He opened a church. I can't think of the name of it. Then he opened a Black Presbyterian church on 15th Street, I think it was. Also, they opened a school, Union Seminary. Cook and his brothers and all of them were educated in Union Seminary School. After graduating from that, they went to Oberlin College. I think it's in Ohio, I believe where Oberlin is. And once his father died, he and his brother, George, I believe, came back and proceeded to run the school. And at some time, Cook Jr. stepped down and let his brother George run it. And they had a few dollars set aside, and they were upset with the city of D.C. simply because there were no funds put aside for black children for education. So somewhere along the way, Cook and about 3 or 4 other black people had an audience with Abraham Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
And they questioned this thing, and they wanted to petition him to see why they couldn't get money for black schools. Well, much as I hate to say it, this had no effect on Lincoln at all, because he didn't do a thing about it. So they still went about, they opened up their own black school, and they were doing it. Then they started getting threats, and they were told that that you're going to be arrested if you don't shut down those black schools. So what Cook Jr. did, he left the area and went to Louisiana, New Orleans, I think.
Yep.
And he opened a black school down there. And somewhere along the way, people down there start saying the same thing. Hey, if you don't get out of here with this mess, we're going to lock you up down here. So he left there and came back to the D.C. area. But by the time they came back to the D.C. area, things had changed considerably. And they were able to go and get some money and fund those black schools for black children's education. And they did that. And in the meantime, Ulysses Grant, who was the president, assigned him or named him a tax collector in the city. And he did that for some time. And he was also an educator, and he still taught school and everything, and he was a politician because he kept, and he was an advocate for black power, so to speak. And he fought that until he died. And he became a board member at Howard University. Now, somewhere along the way, you guys are talking now about why there are no headstones here. Well, at 9th and Rhode Island Avenue Northeast, where the Brentwood Metro Station is, that was where the cemetery was. That's where he was buried. He wasn't originally buried here. He was buried at Columbia Harmony Seminary, which was at 9th and Rhode Island Avenue, a big property there. But you know how they are. They wanted that property. So they kept feeding and feeding and feeding until they finally got the people to say, okay. What they had told them that they would move all the graves, I think there were 400 graves, and they would move them out to Harmony Cemetery, where we are now. And they were also supposed to take all the headstones and bring them back here. They were supposed to dig up the graves, put them in new caskets, and bring all the headstones and bring them back. He might very well have had a headstone.
Okay. It might have broke. It might have dropped it. It might have broke. Yep.
No. Here's what happened. As late as last year before last, down across the 301 bridge, there's a river or a lake or something down there. They found full gobs of headstones. Where did they come from? The cemetery up on Rhode Island Avenue.
Is that the one the Grandmaster working now?
No.
There's no cemetery there now.
No, ain't no cemetery.
That's
Metro
Rhode
up
Island
there
Metro
now.
Station.
There's a Metro.
Okay, a metro station. Okay, so they probably dumped them. Because I know Grandmaster working the headstone piece now. Where some more headstones that was found.
For cutting across you. I was working in that area over there where the cemetery was at past, when they were building that metro, and they had like contracted dig up that whole entire grave and putting body in boxes and carrying it. I didn't know where they carried that, but they were digging the grave up, because that grave been there for a long time. Now they got
this is where they were supposed
Carolina Kitchen. That's a whole big shopping center over there.
Yeah, this is where they were supposed to have
Bring it in.
have brought all those things.
Okay.
Now, I'm gonna cut it short so we won't be here too very long. Now, one of the things that we have to understand, that Cook was a wealthy man.
Right.
And the schools and his political thing and his jobs and everything, he managed to amount a sum of money. And they say he had, at that time, which was a fortune, somewhere around $200,000, which was a fortune for a black man. And he lived at 1118 16th Street, which is what we call the Gold Coast. So one day I'm gonna just take a drive down and try to look at that house where he lived. And when he died, his family was there, his daughter and his son and his wife. They were there, and they think they had his funeral at that 15th Street Black Presbyterian Church. Now, what a lot of people don't understand, although people still didn't like him, and what they probably don't know or didn't realize, he was a Republican. Now, Republicans were in our favor back there. If you remember, Lincoln was a Republican. He's the one who signed the Emancipation Proclamation and all those things. He was in our favor on the surface.
On the surface, right.
But behind the scene, he was doing what was politically correct for him. But black people navigated toward the Republican Party at that time. It wasn't until somewhere in the 60s that they said, the heck with this, and they moved to the Democratic Party.
Sound like Kennedy.
Somewhere in there.
Mhm.
So this is what happened. But that's pretty much how it is with him. So I guess I could go on and talk for days and days, but I'm gonna cut it off right here so we can
Pass.
get on.
One
Yes, sir.
question.
Yeah.